There's a place I have found in the shade on the ground, far from all worries and troubling sound. When I go there to be by myself.
Well, hello again. Thanks for stopping by my channel. This is Mimi's Little City Homestead and I'm Dana. And today we're going to put up hamburger. We don't eat a lot of hamburger and things, but sometimes we do when we want it. I like to have it on hand, so we're going to preserve this two different ways. The first way is I'm going to make hamburger patties. This is probably you've seen these before. The old ones were smaller, and the new ones, of course, they changed the size just enough that you can't, use them. They're not interchangeable, but I have several of the larger and several of the smaller that I had from before. I just can't, since I've moved, find the press for the smaller one, so I'll press that in a different way. But this is a Tupperware hamburger saver. And so we're going to preserve this because when I was at Sam's Club buying groceries, I noticed they had a slight discount on ground beef. I saved about $3.58. So if you take that up off of the weight of it, and this is 90/10 finely ground meat. If you subtract what I saved off the price per pound, which was before the new price, it was $3.98 a pound. And so I got a little bit of savings off of that. So for $3.58, I saved almost a pound. A little over 9.5 pounds. 90/10 fine ground. Normally, I don't care for hamburger in a roll. I've tried it before at different stores, but I decided to try this one time not very long ago, and we really liked it. It was just as good as their square packages of ground beef you can get. So you save more when you buy in a bigger roll, and when they take a little bit off because it's within 2 or 3 days of not being able to sell it, the sell-by date, which on this one is May 18th. But if you look closer, it says to use or freeze by May 25th. So this is the sell-by date. This is the use-by date. And today is the 19th. So we still have 6 days to use this or freeze it. So we're going to freeze some of it. And then what I'm going to do with the rest is can it. I'm going to can it as chopped up ground beef like you would make for spaghetti sauce or if you make tacos. And actually, if you wanted to, you could season your ground beef as you're cooking it up to get ready to can with taco seasoning, and you can have already ready to go taco meat. I'm going to can these in pint jars because that's about a pound of meat. When I want to make sloppy joes or tacos or whatever I want to do with it, it's all cooked up, ready to go, and all I have to do is add it to the pan, warm it up, add my spices, and I'm good to go. We're going to get started by putting some of this in our Tupperware. So I have my kitchen shears here that are only for using with food, and I'm going to go ahead and open up the tube. Now, just to let you know, when I'm canning this, I'm not going to put a hunk of hamburger in a pint jar and throw it in and can it. Nope. I like my hamburger coming out in one big lump. I want it to be ground and ready to go in whatever recipe I have. So I'm going to cook this as in breaking up the meat. I'm going to put the partially cooked meat. I'm not going to cook it all the way, but I'm going to cook it enough where it's not going to lump together. Then I'm going to fill my jars with, for the liquid to go in, I'm going to add beef broth. That will make it taste good no matter what I do with it. It's going to have some flavor to it. No canning it up in a big lump and then trying to break it up afterwards. We're going to go ahead and do a few of the larger size, and I'm going to try to figure out, because you can pretty much put however much meat you want into it. You don't want to overpack it because then you get a really huge hamburger. Unless that's your thing, then pack it as much as you want to. Of course, I've washed my hands before this, but I'm going to put in my press and just pack it down. Whatever little bit of meat comes up over the top, I just take it off and put it back on the roll and keep packing it. And I don't know if you can see that well behind this hunk of meat. So I'll move that aside, but it just packs into this little container and they stack. So I go to my next one, put in, that's probably too much, but we'll go with it. Let's see what we get. Pack in the meat again. And these make really good burgers for some reason. When I pack them like this, and I try to hand pack mine, you know, not overly packed. I don't want my hamburgers to be tough, but for some reason when I pack these in the Tupperware, they're always good and they're tender. And they'll be frozen. You can take them right out of the container real easily and cook them in your frying pan. Or you can take them out on the grill. We do all kinds of stuff with them and they are good. And as you can see, this meat, it's a 90-10 and it's finely ground, and it is. It's really finely ground. So this is really good. I've tried it before, and when I saw it was on sale for a little bit, I thought, why not get some and freeze it? Hamburger cooking weather is coming. Memorial Day's coming. Might as well get hamburgers all ready to go. And then we don't have to stand there and pack them up while everybody's here because they'll just come out of the container and go right on the grill. Again, you can make them as thick or thin as you want because you're just freezing them. So if you don't like them really thick, press them down and only put in as much meat as what will make them as thick as you want them or as thin as you want them. And then they just stack together like this. It's Tupperware, they connect. We have one more large one, so we'll go ahead and do that one too, because that's not very many large ones. I prefer the smaller size, and we're coming up on those here in a minute, so that'll be perfect. Now I've got my burgers together, and there is, for the top one, a lid. And then now we're gonna move on to the smaller size, which is more my thing. My grandkids, you know, they need the smaller size patties. So we'll go with a little less meat in these. I'm just gonna use my fingers to press that down inside. I have my small containers all packed. My large, I have one extra small one to put on to my stack before I add the lid, so I actually got quite a few burgers. You can always freeze them like this, pop them out of the container, put them in a Ziploc bag or in a seal a meal type saver and pack some more in, but this is going to be enough for me for right now. So that's about, I'm guessing, close to 5 pounds in hamburger. And I have about 4 pounds, or I'm sorry, probably 4.5 to 5 pounds left. And this is what we're going to can. We're going to cook it up and get it ready to go in the jars. Get them ready to go in jars with our beef broth. This has to be canned in a pressure canner. It's meat. And I'm going to show you how we do that. Break up our hamburger into kind of fine pieces as we cook it. Like I said, I don't want it to be a big lump, so I'm going to partially cook this and make sure that it's broken up into smaller pieces. Okay, now that we have our ground beef browned and it's ready to go in the jars, I'm going to show you how we're going to do that, and we're going to use beef broth to fill it. So first we'll get started, pull out, I'm going to put them in pint jars. These pint jars are going to pressure can with the ground beef in them for 75 minutes. If you want to do quarts, that will be 90 minutes. Gonna do 2 at a time. Have my spoon so I can kind of, I don't know if you can see that, but I can kind of drain it when I get down toward the bottom where there might be some more of the fat and juices. You want as little fat in this as you can get. Mine is 90-10, like I said. It's very finely chopped or ground. So far I don't have a lot of liquid or fat into it. We want a 1-inch headspace. If you're new to canning, 1-inch headspace is, the headspace is the air between the food that you're putting in your jars and then the lid you're putting on top. You want to maintain that at 1 inch of headspace. Not sure. This is, like I said, probably about maybe 5 pounds of meat, might be 6. I have another roll to do, but this is the end of the first roll. We froze or made patties and froze the first half. Oh, this is not good. A little bit sloppy here. You don't want to pack this meat in too much because you want the beef broth that you're putting in with it right around every little bit inside to help heat it up in the center. Your processing time means you need to have the center of your jar at 240 degrees, not just the outside. So we're gonna go ahead and put our beef broth in. Now this will flavor it somewhat. Actually, it gives a good flavor to it. I'm not salting the meat. You could put about a teaspoon of salt in. This is about a pound of beef. Pints a pound the world around, they say. So this is about a pound. The reason I'm not salting it or adding any onions or anything to it, which I sometimes do, is because I don't know what I'm doing with this yet. Now, if I made this into taco meat, all I have to do is put it in my saucepan, add my taco seasoning and water, and simmer it. It's already cooked. It's already ready to go. So I'm not going to want salt in my taco seasoning. That has enough. One of the reasons why, just to explain, I think it's a good idea to have some cooked ground beef on your pantry shelf is because summer's coming. For some reason on our street, we seem to be at the end of a line, and a lot of people will still have their power after a storm, but we won't. You know, I don't want to lose all the food in my freezer, and that's happened before. So if I do, I still have ground beef that you can literally take out and add anything you want to it. Sloppy Joe sauce, which I make my own. That's one good reason. Sometimes when I want to make something with hamburger, I forget to get it out and let it thaw. If I cook it frozen, the outside always gets done, the inside's still frozen. This is just a handy and convenient way for me to put up something that is shelf stable. It actually lasts longer than freezer burger, and it doesn't get freezer burned. So there's a lot of reasons why I really like to have ground beef or beef chunks, chicken chunks, pork. You can do it with anything. However, I raw pack my chicken. Unlike the ground beef, we're hot packing. So there's 2 jars. I wiped the rims with vinegar to make sure there was no grease on that edge where the lid sits, so we will get a good seal. And I'm going to move on to my next couple of jars here. So you could also, as I mentioned, cook your ground beef, add the appropriate amount of taco seasoning, whether you buy it in those big tall jars and measure your own out, or if you make your own, or if you're just going to use the packages from the store shelf, you can do any of that. Mix it in with your ground beef, put in the appropriate amount of water at that point instead of your beef broth, and then you can already made taco meat. I use this a lot, like I said, for sloppy joes. You can use it for if you want to make spaghetti. It's a quick thing. Just toss in your mushrooms, whatever you want to put in it. Onions, you can toss those in the frying pan real quick. Add your ground beef to your sauce. You can do a lot of different things with this, but mainly it's a shelf stable thing that I just like to make sure I have it on hand. See, if I give it a little tap, I can get enough in there to be able to pack it to the 1-inch head space without overpacking it. Bought a package of beef broth from the store and poured it in my container, microwaved it until it was hot. Make sure we get all the grease off the edge. Current canning instructions say you do not have to oil your jars or your lids. If you're canning for 10 minutes or more with hand, fingertip tight, like always. But so it will produce a little bit of its own juice inside the jar as it's canning, because it's going to continue to cook, and that's okay. If you leave your 1-inch head space, after you put your broth in, you shouldn't have a problem with them sealing. When we get ready to put our jars in the canner, I will bring you back and show you. Okay, I think you can see inside the canner we have 5 pint jars. I ended up with just this little bit of meat, about a half a pint, and that much broth. So I went ahead and put it together, and I'm just going to put that in my refrigerator and use it within a week. But this is approximately 5 pounds of burger. Now, it's cooked, but if you took that size of amount of meat of raw burger and cooked it, it's going to shrink too. So this is approximately a pound each jar. And it does have the broth in it, which you can drain out or use it in whatever you want to use it in. So now we have our water simmering, our jars are in there, our lid on. We're going to wait for this locking float to pop up. As always, that'll come up first, lock with the bracket in the pan. It'll start steaming through our vent. Once it's a steady steam, we'll set the timer for 10 minutes, vent the air out, and let the steam take its place. When the 10 minutes is up, we'll drop on our regulator. That will start to build pressure to 10 or 11 pounds for my area. You need to know what your canning elevation is and look that up. Whether you can 10 pounds or 15 pounds, you need to know that first. Mine is 10 for where I am in Michigan, so as soon as that starts blowing out plenty of steam, I'll set my timer 10 minutes, put on my regulator, and I'll bring you back when the 75 minutes for these pints is. Regulator off. It's cooled down to 0. The pop lock has dropped. There we go. Put them over here. They're going to set for 12 to 24 hours. Make sure everything's sealed. Get that out of the camera and give you a close-up so you can see how good that looks with the broth in it. It's cooked up perfectly. And there we go. It sits, like I said, 12 to 24 hours. It'll be ready to put on the shelf. So next time we can meet, we'll be doing some cubed up roast and some chicken. And those are raw packed. It's a different process. So be sure to look for that and come to my channel again. Thank you for hanging out with me and canning up our meat.